Take it away, gentlemen.
Okay, so we're here to talk about how to find joint venture partners, and that's something that I do pretty much with all my deals. They always have some type of joint venture in them, and there's all kinds of things that we do to attract these people. So if you're out looking for deals and putting the effort out there and making offers on properties, if you don't have a joint venture partner lined up and ready to go, you're going to be wasting your time, and as well as your realtor's time if you're using a realtor. And so it's really good to have your joint venture partners ready so that when your deal is there to go, you're ready to take action. Julie says it all the time. Make sure your money is ready because the fast deals come quick.
Absolutely. I'd like to jump in, John, and just, we mentioned at the event that if you're a secret real estate investor, you're going to be a broke real estate investor.
That's right.
So you've got to let everybody know you're going to raise capital, if you're going to network with good investors, you got to open your mouth, you got to get out there.
Yep. Got to talk. And that's what today is all about, just giving you all tools. I talked at the last event, and for all of you OREG members, you can go back to the last event. I talked a little bit about gold mining. We actually have an OREG member who's literally a gold miner. Yes, he is. It's a gold mine. And you need, back in the old days, yeah, you had to find the land and you had to have permission to access the land in some cases. In some cases, I think it was a little more cowboy than that. But no matter what, you need the tools to dig for the gold. And that's what this event is, and that's what the last event was all about, and most of our events, actually, that we have with OREG. So go ahead, John, I'll let you continue.
Yeah, so OREG being like a really good networking environment, it's really important to network for success. And this means networking the right way, sending the right messages to those that are around you. And a lot of that comes from how you're dressed. I know we had Ken Beaton come out before, and he has a story where he went to an event with a whole beard on and looked a lot like Al Borland from Home Improvement, the Tool Time guy. And then the guy said, "You're more trustworthy without a beard." And so the next day he shaved and he didn't have his beard, and he sat next to the same guy as the day before. And the guy from the day before didn't recognize that it was him and said, "Boy, I'm really glad I got to meet you. I wanted to sit next to a millionaire." And all Ken did was shave his beard and change his dress. And so I think it's really important to be dressed appropriately for each of your different types of meetings. So here's like a little bit of tips. I have a video on YouTube. You can find, that's the thumbnail from it that I used to put on the screen. But basically the one on the left, you're not going to be using that outfit when you're out looking for joint venture partners. That's like the type of outfit I would wear if I was doing yard work or prospecting for a good deal. If you don't want to seem like you're coming from a lot of money and you're really, not just I have investors, but I'm giving you my last pennies to buy your house and do this real estate thing on it. Will you let me? But what you really want to hone in on is, I like when I meet with my people for like a coffee meeting, as I always like to call it. You don't have to be drinking coffee, but you're getting together in a very casual environment. And so that's where I have the outfit. It's the same outfit I'm wearing today, with like a watch, a belt, good shoes, usually slip-on shoes if I'm going in and out of houses. People call them realtor shoes as well. But you want to dress something, I try and wear something inoffensive without a bunch of logos. And it's usually enough to be clean, be clean shaven as well, because it's that more trustworthy face. And then you want to make sure that you're not wearing anything that's super offensive to anyone. I mean, like crazy logos or wild t-shirts like the one on the left. You want to kind of avoid that. T-shirt that you got out of a case of beer, you want to avoid that sort of thing. But like a nice plain t-shirt works in the summertime if it's hot out. Some nice khaki shorts if it's hot out. If it's wintertime, you can even get away with jeans, but khakis do bring it up a little bit. You don't want to overdress. And that would be the one on the right. Now that's for when you're meeting for that coffee meeting to pitch your deal. When you're at like an OREG event, or a seminar or a training event, all the people you meet are going to be learning about the same strategies. And then if you go out to do it in real life, teaming up with someone who already knows a little bit about it could be a very natural fit. And so by having the suit and tie, you're going to represent yourself as a professional real estate investor. You're representing someone who that's the image people have, is the suit and tie or the well-dressed woman who looks professional, who can handle having multiple properties into the dozens and even more so. And that's the image people think of what a real estate investor looks like. So that's the one you're going to meet when you're giving out your business cards, is super proper. The image on the right, the image in the middle, when you're going for a coffee with them, you can lose the suit and tie. And then on the left, that's just the one that I sometimes will use when I'm prospecting for a good deal.
Or a new girlfriend.
Exactly. And it's funny because we have these property scouts that go out in my business, and they knock on doors to see if someone wants to sell their house to us. And one of our property scouts, this just happened on Saturday, and they said, "Oh, we've got this house. It's a fixer upper. Come see it, John. These are sellers." Now it's like a no deal. Their price is out to lunch. But I went to this, and he came to learn, and I showed up in the outfit you see here, just the in-between outfit. And the guy who was the property scout showed up in a complete suit and tie with pinstripes, and like he was looking good, like he was going to a seminar event, but we're trying to get a deal on this guy's house. And so it was the wrong image to be putting out there, as well as people can feel uncomfortable in their own house if you're more than 2 steps better dressed than them. So if they're wearing...
You didn't show up in your Mercedes or your Porsche, did you, John?
I parked the Porsche 2 doors down behind a tree where they couldn't see it, and I walked up to the house. Yeah. So I leave the fancy car at home. And so that's examples of why dressing is really important, because people judge you on your first impression. Ross?
Well, I would say this, you got to be 10 times bolder than you normally would be, but not to the extent that you're going to be obnoxious. People get turned off with obnoxious people. And the other thing too, while we're on this, is when you're meeting people and networking tips, some people have a knack of humor and other people just don't. And if humor is not your thing, don't try and make it your thing. If it comes to you naturally, and humor not against, nothing political, nothing sexist, nothing against, any race, not that kind of humor. I'm just, just nice humor is good. Funny is money. If you can get people to laugh with you, they seem to trust you more, they'll work with you more. But if it's not your deal, man, you're better off not to do it at all. Also, while we're talking about networking tips, figure out what your number is. In other words, how many calls are you going to have to make? How many contacts are you going to have to make to get that prospect, to get that investor? Because networking and attracting investors and attracting capital, again, it's just a numbers game. Everything is selling. And we're going to talk at the end of this webinar today. We're going to talk about NLP and how that's going to help you, and a course that we're going to do in February, I believe. Is that right, Julie?
Yeah, February.
Yeah.
That's the plan. End of February.
So we're going to talk about neuro-linguistic programming and how that can help you. So, yeah. John?
It's also really important to be prepared when you're networking. So if you don't have a deal that you currently have and someone asks, like at an OREG event, you kind of can get past that first layer of getting to meet someone a little bit, because the members come back again and again. And so you've already gotten to know them a little bit. And quite often someone will just walk right up to you and say, "What are you working on? What kind of deal do you have?" And it's really important, if you do have a deal, that you can sum it up in like 60 seconds or less, because you maybe have a 10 or 15 minute little break and that time is very valuable. I consider the networking time the most valuable time of the event. Yes, there's great speakers, there's great content. I learn new tricks, I learn new ways to market. The economists come in, I learn new things about the area that are going on. Those are all really important, but the real value is finding the joint venture partner during the networking time. That's where you're making your money when you come to these events, is by doing the networking so you can actually do your deal. Being very prepared if you don't have a deal to tell them, well, we're doing a lot of marketing, we're attracting these types of deals. People are doing them like crazy with us nonstop, but I could let you know when I have the next one, here's how it works. And then give them a 30-second rundown of how it works. You know, would you be interested in that? And then like probably going for that coffee afterwards is a good time. When can we go for a coffee outside of the event? So being prepared with either knowing some of your deal's details or the strategy you wish to promote at these networking events is really key.
And having a business card, that's part of being prepared. Have your business card ready to hand it out, and asking for their business card in return. So it's not just handing their card or your card, but asking for one of theirs back. And another thing I like to do is when I get their card, after I leave that person, I just make notes on the back of the card about, you know, what we spoke of, what that person's looking for, what kind of return do they want, that sort of thing. So
I would completely agree with that. I'm always writing on someone else's business card. I've got some students of mine. I have a rent-to-own course that I teach. Ross teaches rent-to-own too. And there's a component inside my course where they need to make a business card. And I've had some students of mine say, you know, and these are like usually more of the millennial generation, we don't need business cards anymore. That's a thing of the past. Well, it might have a very short shelf life where you give it to the person and they might throw it in the garbage, or they text you from there and now you're in their phone. But it's really important because it establishes you as professional, even if it has a short shelf life. And part of establishing yourself with a professional business card is having like your name on it in a very clear font that people can read. A lot of people with money are older and they need glasses. So if you have a weird like cursive font or it's like really small, it's really tough. And if they don't know who they're calling, then you're not going to get a deal. Then it's a waste of the business card. So take the time to have a good one, as well as a proper email address. You know, if you're I buy houses cash, whatever, have it be Julie at I buy houses cash or Ross at I buy houses cash, not Julie Bear 1967 at hotmail.com or something like that. That's not going to give the professional image. Yes, you can have an email address from there, but it doesn't look as good. And so that means having a good professional website. So when, you know, you have to be Googleable, something we talked about at the live event. People need to be able to find you online as well. So give them that information on the business card is really means so much more because you need so many more components that the business card sends people to. Maybe you have a YouTube channel and you put it on the back of the card, watch my episodes on YouTube. Those are all things that are going to help with building trust with the people that you meet.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, follow through. My goodness, you know, John, when I'm coaching with people, and Julie, when I'm coaching with people, and especially because when I coach with people, I don't just coach that 1 day or the 2 day or the 3 days, whatever they sign up for, but it's an ongoing relationship that we build. And I'll phone them back and I'll ask them how their business is going, and wow, I'm not having any success, and well, how many people did you call? And invariably I get to the point, well, did you follow through with those people? It's not really following up. That's sort of like a dead end. It's always a follow through with people. And the reality is, and John and I talked about this not too long ago, you're going to get a sale, if that's what we could call prospecting and working with the looking for capital. somewhere between the 5th and the 8th contact. That's just typical. I think John said it's usually the 7th for him, isn't it, John?
Yeah, I find that 6 to 7 touch points before they will trust you with their money. So you met them at the event, that's one thing. You got a coffee with them, that's another. Well, if you present your deal at that coffee, there's not enough trust yet. They just met you. And so what I like to do is I like to speed up that process. I book the coffee a week out. If I know their address, I try and find out their mailing address. I have boxes of like financial education related books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Money People Deal is a good one to send people. Things that educate them about money, help them have an aha moment. If they learn from you, they'll never forget you. And so I like to put a book in the mail after I meet someone. It might be early, but I buy these books in bulk, and I have little bubble mailers. Pick them up at Uline. They'll send you a box full of like bubble envelopes. And make sure you buy books that are not too thick, because they're going to cost you double with Canada Post. That's a tip. So I've gone and I've done 73 book mail outs after a large event where I met where there's maybe 500 people to network with. And then I follow up with them. They go on my follow-up list for more than one follow-up. And if they can receive the book, I also sign them up to my newsletter, and they get a little welcome message. That's another touch point. So they met me at the event. They got a book in the mail. They got my newsletter. My newsletter encourages them to watch some of my YouTube videos if they want, shows them where the channel is. It's just John Simcoe channel. And if they've watched some of those videos, they've heard my voice. And by the very next time that I meet with them for that coffee, I've touched them 4, 5, 6 times in maybe a week's period. And that can often be enough after I sit down with them for a coffee to actually put them into a deal and get their money, all in about a week's long process. But you have to have those different 6 or 7 touch points to build trust.
Absolutely. How about referrals, John? You like referrals?
I love referrals.
Referrals are probably, in my experience, referrals are the absolute best way that you're going to build your business. It doesn't matter what part of your business, and especially when it comes to raising capital and networking, there's probably not a single thing, because you see, people are only going to work with you if they first like you, secondly, they trust you, and then third, they'll work with you when they respect you. But they're going to like you and trust you first. And when it's a referral, especially a warm referral, half your work is already done. They already trust you to some degree because it's a referral from somebody that they trust. So it's called trust transference. And I personally think there's not a better way to build your business than through, a referral networking business. It's just easy.
I agree with that. That happened to me yesterday. We went to a house that was going to get foreclosed on, and this woman needs $6,000 of money, but there's fix-ups beyond that to get her mortgage brought up. And I thought, well, geez, we only need like 10 grand to really get this deal. 15 would make it good. That's not a lot of money, and the financing's built in. And it was one of my property scouts that brought the deal to me. And so I just looked at him. I said, you got any friends, that got like 15 grand? Because he's a young guy, and, that might be too small of a deal for some of the other people I know. I'm like, we're going to flip this house in a couple of months. We're going to find a buyer for it as is. They're going to get a handyman special to fix up themselves, but there's some equity here, and we're going to pick this up. And he made 3 calls. And then said, geez, I don't know what to say to these guys, John. I said, well, just put me on the phone. I got on the phone with one of his friends that he referred to me, and said, he said he's been doing this stuff with me for a few months now. And his friend was completely comfortable enough with it that he started e-transferring me money already. He's in another province. He's like, yeah, I'll do that deal. Let me start sending you some money. said, it's not a lot, so you could do it in a series of e-transfers and it'll work out. And he says, great. I said, I'll make some contracts and I'll send them to your email. No problem. And it was a complete referral from someone who I had already built up trust with. And even though the guy who I was working with, I don't think he has money, his friend does.
Well, yeah, and think about it like this. I would never say, don't prejudge anybody, because everybody knows a minimum of, say, 250 people and probably more, but they have an influence of, say, 250 people. That's the average influence that people have. So you don't know who they know. And, oh, there's my phone. Let me shut that off. So, when you're networking out there and you're working with people, what John just said is absolutely true. He might not have any money, but somebody else does. I'll give you an example that just happened to me last week. I got a referral from somebody that Julie and John and we all know, and he's working out of town. He said, Ross, can you look after this person I know? He wants to rent to own his house out. And I said, sure. So it was close to me, so I invited him up to my office, and we sat down and we went through the deal with him. And I said, James, I'd love to do the deal. He already wanted to do the deal. He was already convinced, because of this person that we know and that knows me, that he should go ahead and do a rent to own. And after I ran the numbers, I said, James, as much as I'd like to do a rent to own with you, the best thing you can do with this property right now is sell it. Just sell it right now. And I'll tell you what, he doesn't have a mortgage on this property or anything. He just doesn't want to have the hassle of looking after it anymore. And I said, sell it right now, and then when you sell it, you can take that money and then you can invest it with me, because you don't want to work in real estate anymore. You can invest it with us, and we'll pay you a really good return on that money. And John, that built trust like crazy, and it also built respect, because even though I could have gone ahead and done the deal and that would have been better for me, it wasn't what was the best thing for that person. And you'll never go wrong doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. So I walked away from money, but I guarantee you that because of that likability, because of the trust transfer to start with, and then the trust that I built by not letting them do the deal, and the respect I gained will pay dividends in the future.
It will. I've had the same thing as well before on a Fort McMurray property with a woman that I knew through my cash flow event nights. And at the time, I had a rent-to-own buyer who wanted to live in a particular townhouse. And I got some best friends of mine that live in the same townhouses, and they're all within 10 grand of each other. And the way the market went down, they're all worth about $400,000 right now, maybe even a little less right now. But this is like going back about a year. And she knew what I did rent to own wise. This woman referred me lots of people. I went and I got a buyer who wanted one of these. And I can see that this friend of mine, her name's Nina, and Nina is advertising her townhouse. She owns multiple properties, and she puts this townhouse available for rent. And I can see her ads. And so I thought, well, I'm going to call Nina up and tell her I got someone who will rent your place and then buy it. And so I get Nina on the phone and we talk for 15 minutes and we go through the financials on her property. And it's just one of those cases. A lot of folks in town in Fort McMurray are in the situation where they owe more than their place is worth. And sometimes a rent to own deal will fix that, because when their mortgage gets paid down for 3 more years, it might be enough to close a small gap. But Nina's gap was about $100,000, and there's no way that in 3 years we can pay that down enough. She's going to still need to spend money out of her own pocket to get out of the house. And I said,
you've got interest differential penalties too to worry about.
Yeah. And I just said, Nina, we're friends, and I got a buyer for your place, but I don't recommend as your friend that we do this. I'll make money as a rent-to-own company, but as your friend, this is not a good investment decision. You need to just rent this out for 5 or more years and then look at maybe doing something like this at that time. And And Nina knows other women her age. She's about a generation older than me. And she knows other women and guys that own several properties. And she refers them over all the time because she knows that this might actually help them depending where they stand.
And also, John, they will be, like the person that referred this person to me, and in the same case for you, they won't hesitate about referring more people because they understand that, you know, you'll look after that person for the best interest of that person, not the best, best self-interest.
It's
and that's
true.
Huge.
It really means putting your deal partner first. That's kind of what it comes down to, and making sure that you know what they want. And if it's not going to give them exactly what they want or put them in a far better situation, then it's probably not worth doing with them.
That's right.
They will come to they'll go to home after your meeting. If you want to still do that and you're trying to convince them, they're going to go home after your meeting, and you could do all the NLP you want and have them convinced to do this with you if you're doing it unethically and maybe they shouldn't be doing it. And eventually that magic will wear off. And if they're sitting there in their bed, it's a couple nights later, you know what? I don't think that makes sense to do. Why am I thinking about doing that? And now they're going to start questioning you for why would you
and remember this, John, and you know this, and Julie, you know this, is that, but for anybody listening to us, remember this. People will never remember what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And you have to make them feel better. Yeah, or they're not going to work with you. They got to feel better leaving you than when they came in to see you. In other words, are you an attractor or are you a detractor?
That's very true.
Exactly. I'm going to jump in here because I think this might be, even though we haven't finished it, but it's already my favorite part of this webinar, is just do the right thing. There are plenty of deals. There's always another deal. There's always another investor. There's always another opportunity. But you can't put a price tag on looking at yourself in the mirror every day or the ability to sleep well, because you just do the right thing. And there can be times when you're tempted. And I just really admire both of you for really emphasizing that it's always just the best to just do the right thing. And I have one more thing that I want to say because it's bugging me, or I just think it's important. John, you just talked about how you're with your scout that's in training, and he said, I don't know what to say. And you said, hand me the phone. Well, that's because you're always ready, John, right? And
yeah.
It takes a lot of repetition. It takes a lot of practice. It was in the slide before. Be prepared. Always be ready. Always be ready, because you just never know when that next opportunity is going to present itself. So always be ready.
And I normally pitch a lot of rent-owns. I think I have almost every base covered, and I welcome a healthy debate on either side of either doing it or not doing it, because I know all the points pro and con. And this was not a rent-to-own deal. This is a flip deal. And so I'm not used to pitching it, but I've done it before, and literally in 2 seconds I'm like, okay, I know exactly what I'm saying to him, because I practiced. I first started practicing in a mirror, and I got a friend to practice on who is patient. And then I started practicing in real life, putting my deals out there. First deals I was raising money for were rent-owns. The first 50 people I asked all said no to me. And I had the pressure of needing to close on a deal. And I never gave up, which is part of a good lesson as well, to have a lot of perseverance. But eventually I did figure out what to say and how to say it so that I didn't confuse the other person a whole lot, didn't make myself look like a super smart know-it-all either, because they don't want to, work with someone who's arrogant, and basically figured out the right attitude to bring. And from all of that practice, and then now having pitched several hundred deals that have gone through. It's not too hard to pitch a different strategy from another, but it helps to have practice and have practice doing it. So, if you're alone, do it in a mirror, or, selfie record yourself so you can watch it again. Some people don't like watching themselves, but you need to be your own judge. And then actually practicing it in real life. So that way you'll be prepared, because Sunday night that deal came into me. Oh, you better call John. I think he knows what to do with that. Monday morning at 8:30, I was having a coffee with the bird dog. Tell me about this deal some more. I had to meet with my lawyer, with Leonard after that. Immediately after my meeting with him, I was at the house. We haven't even walked out of the driveway of the house yet, and we're talking to his investor on the phone. And so it happened as quickly as like 12 hours later, we now have a deal to talk about that never existed before. So that's being prepared allows us to move quickly. And we have to, because this woman will get foreclosed upon and we'll have no deal, and she'll have no credit. And she's trying to save some face by getting out of the house. So we can help more people by being prepared too.
Absolutely. So investing in today's world, John, I don't know about you, but it's sure changed for me over the last 42 years. It's got a little more sophisticated, and I'll tell you what, it's got a little bit faster. Let me just rephrase that, a lot faster. And we have a lot of challenges facing the average investor today that they never faced in the past. And one of those challenges is, I don't know if you can remember, John, but way back when, people used to say, well, if I save enough money, I can live off of what I saved and I can get paid, on the interest. And that's when interest rates, you go put it in the bank, you get 8-10% interest rate. And if you had $1 million in the bank back then, you could live on $100,000 a year, what you made. That, of course, that's just gone. I mean, you're not going to make anything, and interest rates, I don't know if you noticed, the Fed has dropped their rate for the 4th time this year. Mm-hmm. Are we headed to negative rates? Yeah, probably. And so that doesn't mean that you're going to pay negative rates. It means that, it costs you money to put it in the bank. So this idea of save yourself and retire is ludicrous. The whole idea of go to school and get a good education so you can get a good job is kind of history, when the average job in Canada lasts 2.5 years. So, has the investment landscape changed? Absolutely. Has it got faster? Absolutely. There's some things that haven't changed though. One of the things would be that nobody invests for the nightmare. In other words, nobody puts money into something and go, well, I hope that doesn't make anything. In other words, they always invest for the dream. But they are facing nightmares. People right now are facing nightmares with their investments. And when you come along and people who really know what they're doing come along, and I mean really know what they're doing, and they have a proven track record of consistently returning good investments to their investors, well, people will respond to this. They respond to the dream. And part of your job, I would say, is as investors, is you have to, sell them on the dream. It's not about it's about what they're going to do with the money that they're going to make. And so, John, I mean, we'll share this little topic here because I'm sure you've got some perspectives on challenges that investors are facing, and then I'll come back in and we'll just jump back and forth.
Well, I think a lot of common problems that investors have is there's a lot of old information, and there's a lot of things like sayings that are ingrained in our society. Like the save your money message, or, like banks use them all the time, like you're richer than you think. And in reality, they're trying to earn business, they're trying to generate fees. And if you really knew what those fees did in the long scheme of things, if you have $1 million portfolio, after fees, you might have 400 to 600 grand. That's a huge difference in the end. And so a lot of people just think, oh, well, my money manager will look after it. My money manager takes care of me. No, they're just a salesperson. Somebody else other than the person you're meeting with at the bank is actually handling the stocks, the investments, the fund. And at the end of the day, science has proven that monkeys make better choices than these financial advisors. They had a monkey throwing darts at different stocks to pick, and the monkey's stocks outperform the professional fund managers every time. It's a true study. So you're better off to either randomly pick things, which I don't think that's a great, leaving your future up to chance is not my opinion of getting ahead. You want something that should be secure, performs far better than what the average is doing, and then you can actually achieve your retirement goals and your income goals. Otherwise, you're not gonna be happy with the end result, and you only get one shot at to save up and then retire. By the time you turn 60 or 70 years old, or whenever you're planning your retirement on that save up mentality, if that saving doesn't work out, or some of those funds don't work out, and they can, because it's happened to people in the past, then it's too late to find that out, and it's too late to rebuild.
Yeah. You know what? It's so true with this saving thing. When you think about it, we're living in a world of low interest rates pretty much across the world. And what that does is it encourages inflation. And if your inflation rate is between 3 and 4%, and you're not making at least that much on what you're saving, you're not making anything. At the end of the day, you're losing money. So inflation is not a natural thing. It's inflation is a policy, a lot of policies by the government. So we have to be prudent enough as investors that we can actually beat the inflation rate at very best. And John, and I know what we won't invest in. I don't know what your rate is, but I won't invest anything unless I'm making a 30% return on my investment, which of course beats the inflation rate. So the people that are investing with us are doing very well. But how many people in the stock market are actually making that kind of returns? I mean, not very many. And by the way, this bull market that we're in is not going to last forever. We always go through those cycles. And another thing that's happening, and really we have to be cognizant of this fact, is that these low interest rates are encouraging people to invest, especially in property, encouraging what we would call amateur investors to invest in property because of the low interest rates. Now, what happens is that they are investing in malinvestments, which are what we would know as badly appointed investments. They're not really good investments, but because of the low interest rates, they think that it's a good investment. It's not. We got to, when we're working with our investors, when we're attracting capital, we've got to guide our investors into good investments and away from these shiny squirrels, squirrel, and put them into good investments. I mean, that's one of the things that we need to do, because right now, the investors out there, some of the problems they're facing is these low interest rates are attracting people into stuff that they shouldn't be even in.
I agree with that. Some of the other things that I also see on here is another problem that people can face is like lack of capital. Because like what's a minimum amount of money you would put in one of your deals, Ross?
A minimum amount?
Yeah, from a partner. What would you?
My minimum amount is whatever I need to put in to make the deal cash flow. So in other words, for me, cash flow is always king, John. If I have to put 50% in to make it cash flow, I'd rather do that and get a 10% return than put in 5% and get a 90% return and have a negative cash flow. So that's a funny question. So my minimum investment is whatever I need to put in to make it cash flow.
Okay.
Maybe I'm not following where you were going with that.
Oh, it's okay. And the answer is different for everyone. Everyone who puts a deal, because I've put 10 people with $10,000 together. Now I have 10, 10 people to put a phone call with. But there's also like, you can have like a lack of capital, which can be a problem, because joint venture partners, like I hear this all the time, especially at seminars and events. And I sit next to a guy and he's got his suit and tie on too. And he's got good business cards. And for whatever reason, he's probably not following up is probably the real problem. But I say, what do you need for a joint venture partner? I got like so many of them coming at me. They're all over my world. And he says, well, I need someone with good credit. They need to have $100,000 to put down. They need to get a bank financing. And they paint this little box of what they want their perfect joint venture partner to be. Not everyone has $50,000 or $100,000 to put down. They might be able to get the mortgage. They might be able to do other stuff like that. But by confining to this little box, it doesn't always work. Sometimes capital comes from more than one person to make a deal work.
Yeah, absolutely, John. And that's part of being a sophisticated investor. We know how to syndicate to make the deal work. So we can bring in, so when I misunderstood what you said there, absolutely. If somebody comes in and they've got $5,000, well, yeah, we can partner up with somebody who's got 10,000, maybe with somebody who's got 20,000, and we can make it work. And we do that all the time.
And so that guy who's looking for that perfect $100,000, $500,000 property to do their deal, and those are just numbers I see all over Western Canada at all the real estate clubs. And there's no reason that you couldn't take someone with $30,000 and someone with 70 and still do that deal.
Absolutely.
But if you're only looking for someone with 100 and you throw away the person with 70 and you throw away the person with 30, well, guess what? A year later, the same seminar is coming through town. I'm going to the same event. I sit next to the same guy. So how many deals did you do this year? Well, none yet. I'm still looking for the perfect joint venture partner. People are not perfect. They have different amounts of credit they can qualify for, different amounts of cash, different amounts of RSPs, LIRAs. And so by being a professional real estate investor, you now have this huge network of lots of people that you know, and then it's a matter of making sure they're comfortable doing business together with you, and you'll get a deal, and that other guy who's still looking for the perfect one partner is still going to sit there looking around, or do maybe one deal or maybe two. And we're doing multiple deals a week, and it's because we know how to partner the right people together.
And we also, one of the things we have to do, and I don't know, you probably experienced the same thing, Julie and John, is that the investors that we're dealing with, not the experienced investors, but sometimes the experienced ones as well, but the ones who are just starting to invest, it's a lot of training goes in there. And what I've noticed is, especially with the younger investors, they've grown up in a world of instant gratification where they crave immediate results, immediate returns, and a lot of times it's that shiny thing where they say, well, I could get a better return over here. Well, what we have to educate them on is, well, these are just good, solid returns that we're offering you. They're not, out of the world returns. They're just solid returns backed by a solid investment. And it's built over time. This isn't going to be instant gratification and, you're a millionaire next year. And so I've noticed that we have to do a lot of training, because what investors have as a problem these days is, all this promise of instant wealth. And can it happen? Yeah, but those are the long shots. What we're talking about is wealth built over a long period of time in something that's safe.
That happened with Julie and I on a deal that I think we finished it about, was it 6 months ago or so? And we had partnered together 7 people, which is borderline too many relationships to handle for one deal.
Yeah.
And all 6 of the 7 all wanted to come in the next deal. So we went and did the next deal, and a few more people came to the table because it was a bigger deal.
Yeah.
But we had this one guy, and he was a $10,000 piece of money. And at the end of the first deal, I said, so do you want to get in on another deal? He says, no, I'm taking my money and I'm going to go do stocks with it. And I said, well, you know, and this is a young guy. He's probably like 24, 25, firefighter, very little life experience in the grand scheme of things, but very little as an infant in terms of being an investor. He hasn't experienced a loss yet. Like you said, the markets are doing well. And he said to me, John, and this was for Julie and my deal, John, that was the worst return I ever received. And I thought, we have outperformed every single mutual fund company in all of Canada with the deal he was in. Even the richest funds that have huge minimums to get into of like 250 grand and up just to get in, we outperform that on your little $10,000. You cannot access a deal that performs this well with like little to no risk. I think that was like one of the least riskiest deals I've ever done. And so this guy's money was safe. It outperformed better than almost everything else. And he was still unhappy with it. So I don't know where
it's that instant gratification thing. That's the world that, you know, a lot of people have grown up in, because of, you know, communication is so fast these days. Everything is fast. And it's one of the things that we're having to deal with is this speed, this whole speed thing. I mean, I remember the days, and this is kind of a little off topic, but I remember the days where we actually had to drive our offer because we didn't even have a fax machine.
Yeah.
We had to drive our offer from Calgary to Edmonton to make offers on apartment buildings and we used to hire people to drive there. Imagine that. Or what we used to do is mail it. Hey, phone them up in 10 days. Did you get my offer yet? No, it must be stuck in the mail. It's coming. Crazy.
It's crazy how fast stuff can happen.
Yeah.
And
anyway, we're running a little short. We wanted to talk about NLP as well, right, John?
More than
one exit. This is really super important. Having more than one exit strategy.
That's right. I think this comes down to having more than one exit strategy, which means you have your plan A, you have your plan B, and you have a plan C. And a lot of people only have a plan A. And does everything work out perfectly every time?
No.
There's sometimes.
Yes, always. Every time.
Every time.
Every time. It's amazing. That's what I love about real estate.
I am going to invest with Julie because nothing ever goes wrong.
Yeah.
Are there factors out of our control that can happen? Can the mortgage rules change and all of a sudden nobody be a buyer anymore?
Yeah.
Mortgage rules change and everybody can buy a place all of a sudden. So part of what I'm sitting down having a coffee meeting with someone is I like to outline my main strategy that I'm going to be using. Like that flip house, we're going to first try and flip it as a handyman special. That's our plan A. But our plan B is we're prepared to do the flip ourselves if we need to.
Mm-hmm.
We just need a little more than that 15 grand money, but that's not a problem. We'd just be borrowing renovation money. And there's a good chance our guy with 15 grand has a bit more cash that he's sitting on, but he wants to see what we can do with this to get started. Our plan C is if our fixed up house, if we can't sell it just on the open market to make a normal sale, to make a fast deal, if that doesn't work, well, I'm an expert at rent to own. I'll sell it for rent to own. We'll make more money, but we're going to have to wait a few more years to make it. So we have 3 plans for that.
I think you have 4. In a city with less than 0.5% vacancy rate, right?
We could rent it out. We could rent it out.
Plan D, right?
Plan D. Yeah, I don't really want to just rent it out, but you know what? If I had to, this place would be able to cover all of its expenses, rent it out. So as a plan D, that works as well. But ultimately, we're getting it at 70 cents on the dollar. We want to make some money off that equity. That's plan A. But also being well versed in different strategies. And that means being a sophisticated real estate investor. Most people don't know me as someone who does flips, and they're not my most normal deal. I don't teach training courses on how to do it because I haven't done it enough myself or been in enough situations to feel comfortable to pass that knowledge on to anyone. But I'm still capable of doing it. I've done a few. I've done some with Julie. I've done some on my own. So being a sophisticated investor means not just having one way to do it. If you're a flipper and the only way you know how to get rid of a property is to sell it through a realtor, then eventually something's going to happen where the realtor does not perform or the market doesn't come through and your house is not going to sell. You know, I have a good friend of mine. He's a flipper. He had 5 houses on the go, making monthly payments to all his lenders. I wouldn't suggest that on a flip. And then he calls me up and says, "Oh my God, John, I don't know what to do. I can't keep making payments to these investors of mine. None of the houses have sold." So it's a combination of his own money and his investors' money in all 5 of these deals. I said to him, "You need to learn how to sell these as rent to owns, where you can get a deposit up front, return a little bit of money to your investors. Oh, but they didn't sign up for that." Because being prepared, like at the start of this conversation, means outlining the different plan B, plan C, plan D. You only told them that you would sell it with a realtor and that it would happen. And when it didn't, you didn't know what to do. Whereas if you said, "This is my plan if this doesn't work. If this doesn't work, I'm going to do that. If that doesn't work, I'm going to do the next thing." And so your joint venture partners are going to really enjoy working with you because you're not just a one-trick pony.
And you told them that up front, John, which is not only gives them some comfort, but if you had to go to plan B or plan C, they already knew that you were prepared to do that, and that was part of what they got into. What joint venture partners hate the most, and you would know this, is cash calls.
Yes.
They don't want to have a cash call. They want to invest it and forget it. They don't want you to come there and say, "Well, I kind of messed up and we didn't plan for this." No, we planned for best case and worst case. We planned for best case, middle case, and worst case. So when we get to that, you know, they've already been told ahead of time. They don't want to have they hate the unexpected.
Yeah. Especially if they've put most of their money into your deal and then a year later you're calling them saying, "I need $20,000. Our property got trashed."
Yeah. No,
And
they don't want that.
They might not have it, or all of a sudden the family vacation is canceled. That's a
and
lot.
Now you're the bad guy, and they don't want to invest with you anymore.
Yeah. And then they don't.
Your name is no good because you messed this up. But if they invest with people like ourselves, who, well, first of all, we analyze the deal to make sure that the chances of us ever losing money is slim. We can't ever say there's no risk, but we take a lot of the risk out of it right up front. So they like that. They also like that we present with not just the best case scenario. This is also
It's true, and we need to have all of those different things going so that people can expect that there could be a change of plan along the way, or something new is discovered. Julie and I had that happen. We picked up a place to flip, like our $1 million flip. We made a few videos at the house, and it's got the one with the hidden passageway, if you guys are familiar with some of our content. And like, it's a cool place, and we did some nice updates to it, and we wanted to sell it at the exact moment the market decided to slow down. If we could have sold it if it would have sold, if we were doing that a year earlier, we'd have sold at the complete peak, which is maximizing everything. Now we have a lender for that. He paid for some of the financing costs while the renovations were going on. You know, he paid for those carrying costs. He paid for the renovations, paid for basically everything to get this deal going. Mm-hmm. And he knew from doing some deals with me in the past that our plan B was, if we don't sell it, John is good at rent own, because he invested in rent owns with me before I said, let's go do a flip with Julie. And he knew at the start that if our flip did not sell for any reason, because this is $1 million house, they're not the same as selling a $400,000 or $500,000 house where like buyers come and gobble them up. This is a bigger, more expensive property and worth every penny. But knowing that this is either going to be a flip deal, and if it doesn't sell, we're not prepared to sit on it and wait all winter and have to continue making payments. We're going to put a rent to own in there, so it's still sold, which everybody wants, but we can at least cover those monthly costs. And that's a good fix for a situation like that. And just, he knew that we were both experienced a lot in rent to owns as an exit strategy. It's a great way to exit a property because you're suddenly more in control than if you're just hiring a realtor to sell it, or even a friend who knows what they're doing. Like, if you're actually doing it yourself, you have more control, and that reduces a lot of the risk for anyone who you're partnering with.
Hi, I'm John Simcoe, and I designed this mini course called Mortgages and Money Partners so that you could go out there and use all the tips inside of the video. There's an hour of content filled with all the gold nuggets about what I did when I was getting started to be able to find new money partners. It goes everywhere from your circle of influence of the people who are closest to you to what it's going to take to actually be able to get strangers to give you their money for your deals. Also, we cover some of the mortgage lending landscapes and joint venture structures that you can use, whether it's the same person who has the money and a different person who gets the mortgage, or if they're both the same person. There is definitely a way to do this right, and I see a lot of people doing it wrong. So I've created this mini course so that you can learn and take it from there. This course will help you get more deals done. As a special bonus, I've included one of the very first agreements that I used with money partners and a system to be able to scale, to have more than one partner in a single deal, and so they can all be treated fairly. This document cost me thousands and thousands of dollars to have created with a lawyer. The cost of the course is a fraction of this. That alone will see that you save money with your lawyer by buying this and following the instructions. As soon as you do a deal, you'll find that your investment in this course will be returned many, many times over.